Hello, everyone. Welcome along. I'm here with Suzanne tonight. We're going to have a chat about an interview that took place last week on The Tonight Show with the Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan. It happened last Tuesday. We're going to get straight into it. Hello, Suzanne. Sorry, how are you?
Hello, how are you? I apologize to anyone who's watching for the not very good setup on my end, but I'm doing this off a phone because there was a problem with the computer.
No problem. We can see you perfectly and we can hear you, so all is good. So let's get straight into this. I've chopped up this interview with a couple of highlights from the Minister for Justice. So let's get straight into the first clip and we'll have a chat.
8 hours of Friday night, Saturday morning happened at precisely the time when nightclubs will be closing. But a lot of us have seen the footage of South End Street in early hours of Saturday morning. There isn't the Garda to be seen. One would have thought it was a very obvious time to have a Garda presence on a street like that.
Well, first of all, Gavin, it was horrific and it was appalling and it was unacceptable what happened. And I just want to inform the people who participated in that violence, and they're the people who are responsible for it, that they will be tracked down by An Garda Síochána, and I'm aware that An Garda Síochána are making very good progress in respect of it.
Just to comment on this, this is this stabbing that took place a week or two ago now. At this stage, a fourth man was arrested this morning. So the victim in this case, here you can see an article on the Irish Mirror. A Nigerian asylum seeker stabbed to death in Dublin was previously accused of rape in Italy. So I know when this news broke, when we heard it was an asylum seeker from Dublin, the radical lefties on Twitter were all over it saying, we knew this would happen. Yes, we knew it was this would happen, the rise of the far right, blah, blah, blah. No, it was nothing to do with the far right, of course. It was, in fact, 4 individuals were arrested, and one of them was charged with a murder, who was Ryan Ndidi. And Jeffrey Bangu is charged with assault, violent disorder, and producing a knife. And then you had, sounds like 2 Irish names, Rory Carr and Sean Ford, who was just picked up today. But just on that, Suzanne, we might just play this clip here because I know you might have something to say on this. This is Jim O'Callaghan speaking recently again.
Are you going to look into the vetting of asylum seekers? I only ask because the victim of the South End stabbing was reportedly in the Italian media wanted on rape charges. This isn't the first time this has happened. How can people have faith in the system that people who are coming in here are being adequately vetted?
Well, if you look at the legislation under Section 10 of the International Protection Act, we're entitled to exclude from the international protection process individuals who have been convicted of serious non-political offences in another jurisdiction. So that is an opportunity for us to not permit people to seek international protection if they have been convicted of serious offences. However, if it is the case that somebody hasn't been convicted, it is extremely difficult to rely upon an allegation or to rely upon charges that are subsisting. If there were charges against any individual, you would have thought that the other European country would have sought an European arrest warrant to get their return to face charges.
So there you go, Suzanne. He wasn't charged with rape, so there's no problem. He had the right to be here.
Where to begin on that one? Well, first of all, what does vetting even mean? What does that mean? So we're told that people are vetted. But yesterday, as we know, the Taoiseach, de facto Taoiseach, Micheál Martin stood in the Dáil and he said, but what does vetting even mean? So on one hand, they're telling us they're vetted, but they're also saying, well, it's not even a thing. It doesn't mean anything. But Jim O'Callaghan here saying that somebody should be still allowed to apply for asylum if they have an accusation as opposed to a conviction of rape or for another crime seems just absurd to me. If there's any hint at all that somebody has committed a crime like this in another country, they shouldn't be allowed in. If he was an innocent man, he wouldn't have left Italy in the first place. And he said something like, well, if there was no international arrest warrant, well, then it probably wasn't a serious allegation, or they didn't have enough evidence, is the implication or whatever. But I just, maybe when he left Italy were just, they didn't want to have him back. He says, oh, well, they didn't bring him back to Italy for trial or whatever, but maybe they're just happy to get rid of him. There was a lady murdered who lived 3 doors down from me, a lady by the name of Linda Christian, a few years ago, and she was murdered by a Romanian man. And the guards, there would have been a lot of CCTV available to the guards of him being with her in her final moments, and potentially more than that. There could have been CCTV up around where he dumped her body. They went over to Romania and they interviewed him once, and then they let him go. So, if there's any accusation at all, Joseph Puska, who murdered Aisling Murphy, we know he was convicted of statutory rape in his own country, but he was also a suspect in two separate allegations from two separate countries regarding a sexual crime in which he was suspected to have been involved. And what are the chances that you would have been wrongfully accused twice in two separate countries? So he was allowed in as well.
Absolutely, yeah, a lot of red flags there. But we should have been on top of. By the way, of the 4 people who were picked up for this murder of this man, Mr. Baman Babatunde, only one of them, Ryan Ndidi, was arrested. He was arrested in Belfast, and he was the only one charged with murder. Now, he does have a past as well, and I just want to compare 2 articles here. The first one is a good buddy of yours, Suzanne Conor Gallagher. 3rd man arrested in connection with fatal stabbing in Dublin City. I'm going down here to this line. One suspect who was arrested in Belfast by the PSNI on foot of a request from the Gardaí was on bail for possession of an offensive weapon. Okay, so that's the way it's portrayed there by your man Conor Gallagher. Possession of an offensive weapon. It's reported differently here. A suspect arrested in Belfast was on bail for a violent incident involving a knife. Now, to me, they're 2 different things. Am I wrong on that?
No, well, Conor likes to manipulate the facts and the language as far as I'm concerned. You can sue me, Conor Gallagher, if you wish. He reported that Aisling Murphy was strangled when in fact she was stabbed in the neck 11 times. She was almost decapitated. Her voice box was severed and she couldn't scream for help as a result. And when the child was boxed by the bus driver there a few weeks ago, you might remember the uproar over that. Conor Gallagher wrote that this was an altercation. So an altercation, if you look up the meaning of that word, it means like a public brawl or a public disagreement, a public fight. He somehow trying to imply that this was an equal fight, an equal balance of power between these 2 individuals involved in that incident. One was a child who was probably no more than 10 years old. So Conor Gallagher is, he's not an impartial journalist by any means. He's not, this language, this is something they do a lot. I've seen this in the last couple of weeks. We saw this with the stabbing in Stoneybatter, where they, were calling them slash type wounds instead of, knife wounds, or it turned out the guy had a scissors and a box cutter. But it's this minimizing language, and they did it with the same week there was a court case of a Tunisian man who had hid in a woman's garden, and she came out to investigate, and he slashed her across the face, and there was a 9-centimeter gash in her face, and they said it was said in court that, and in the media, that her face was slashed with an item. Right, the item turned out to be either a large shard of glass or scissors. And he was also in possession of apparently a large stone, which might be known as a rock to most people. And this guy didn't.
This is
really
Conor
get
Gallagher. This is all Conor Gallagher, yeah.
No, I don't know if that was Conor Gallagher, because I don't believe it was actually. So a lot of them are at it. It's not just Conor Gallagher.
Yeah.
This is something they're doing. This is part of their agenda. It's, when you're talking about people like ourselves, there's this extreme language used, like, we're far right, racists, whatever. But when they're talking about these people who commit these crimes, there's a desire to minimize.
Yeah.
So if they can't cover up the crime, if they can't not report on the crime, well, then they're minimizing the language around the crime. Like the Ukrainian man who broke into the woman's apartment there recently and held her at knife point. And they said knife, but they also said that, he was just, he was a poor war victim and he was suffering from PTSD, and he, all right, that's fine. So they have this desire to at least elicit your empathy for the person who commits the crime if they can't, not report on it at all. There's a desire to minimise the language or evoke your empathy. One or the other.
I know you said they're all at it,
Hope that
but Conor Gallagher is getting a lot of airtime in recent times, and you wouldn't be surprised now if he gets snapped up by some government minister in the not too distant future. You know, we've seen it before with the mainstream journalists getting snapped up. So they play their cards right. They act in the best interest of the state, minimising things, as you say, like this. And if they play their cards right, they get signed up to a big position.
That's what these journalists, you see, journalism is not what it used to be. Journalists used to be passionate about their job and they defended the truth, and and they weren't on the side of the government. But now they're all paid by the government, and not only are they paid by the government, but as in the newspapers get funding and that. It's also a case that these journalists are angling towards NGO positions or government advisory roles.
Now, Suzanne, we'll keep going here because we have a lot of clips to get through. So I want to go back to Minister for Justice here. Have a listen.
I want to be ambitious and try to get in as many Gardaí as possible in the next number of years. I'm going to be honest with people. It is very difficult at a time when we have full employment in the Irish economy to try to attract people into An Garda Síochána. But the message I keep putting out there is that it is a very worthwhile and enjoyable job. It's a job that's committed to public service, and as the advertisement says, it's a job worth doing.
Oh, well, as long as the advertisement says it. Or it's advertisement, by the way. I hate the way they mispronounce words. It's as long as the advertisement says it's a job worth doing. Well, that must be true.
Yeah. I mean, who in the right minds would want to be a guard at the moment? Yes, I mean, it's great to be out there helping to protect people, but it's the country has just gone so dangerous at the moment. I just want to give a few statistics here, okay, regarding Garda numbers. So in 2023, there was a net decrease of 135 Gardaí in 2023. In 2024, just last year, there was a net increase of 193 guards, okay? So over the 2-year period, you're talking about a net increase of 58 guards, okay? An additional 58 guards in 2023 and 2024. And to put that in some sort of context, we've taken in between 25 and 30,000 asylum seekers during that time. We've also taken in about 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, maybe 25% of which may be gone home now. But you're still talking in total over 100,000 new people from countries all over this world. And we've taken in, what did I say, 58 guards in 2 years.
What about all the people coming in on visas as well?
That's exactly right. Yeah, only back there in February the 13th and 14th, I think we signed up we gave out another 5,000 passports.
Now some of them do. Some of them are, just from people abroad who don't live here who are entitled to passports. But there is definitely an increase in people coming in here and getting Irish passports as well.
Just to give stats on that for people, Suzanne, in 2023, approximately 20,300 citizenships were granted, and in 2024, over 31,000 citizenships granted, and expected to be in the region of between 30 and 35,000 citizenships given out this year. That's on top of the 100+ thousand refugees and asylum seekers, with 58 new guards in 2 years. I mean, we are asking for serious trouble in this country.
That's a great way to get votes as well, isn't it? When someone has citizenship, they can vote. So
yes, we saw it. No citizenship needed for the local elections, but we saw local councillors here, established Fine Gael councillors in Mayo, bussing them in. One of the only lads that had access to the iPass centre, and he was up there, and he's out there pulling weeds with them and planting flowers every Saturday.
Yeah.
Building relationships.
Can I just say a quick story? The summer before last, I went in looking for Mel Sutcliffe, who is the owner of the Asylum Centre in East Wall and lots of others. And I went looking for him at his registered address, which is a law firm in town. And I was with a couple of ladies from Turnipin, shout out to them. And we didn't want to leave because, this guy came down and he was like, oh, well, he's not here, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we're not leaving because this is the registered address and we want to talk to him. So they called the guards on us. And when the guards arrived, the two guards said, I said, look, we could have come here with a lot of people and had a protest outside. We didn't do that. We decided to just come, a couple of us, and ask to speak to this man. And he basically said, one of the guards said, like, please don't call lots of people here, because we are the only two guards on duty for the whole of South Dublin city centre that day. So there was just two guards on duty for the whole of the south side of the quays.
That is absolutely crazy, isn't it? And I mean, the guards are doing everything they can possibly do to get guards in and to retain them.
That's why they're cutting corners on the background checks, though. Because they're desperate for them.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But just to mention a few things that they've done over the last couple of years, the age limit for joining has been raised from 35 to 50, so you can join anytime up to 50 now. That came in late 2023. The mandatory retirement age is increased from 60 to 62. They've eased the educational requirements. They've removed the push-ups and sit-ups from the fitness test. And as well as that, in October 2023, the weekly training allowance for the Garda recruits was boosted by 66%. So, I mean, they are, people, for whatever reason, don't want to join the Guards at the moment.
Listen, Jim O'Callaghan was able to pass that fitness test himself. And yeah, he must be easily pushing 60 or more. And he was able to pass that test. And now he's looking for that test to be made easier for applicants. So, I don't know. I really don't see someone who is not able to pass that fitness test being able to run after criminals and deal with situations where. So that Ukrainian man I was talking about there a while ago, who broke into the woman's apartment with a knife. Some people might have seen the video going around where the guards went to arrest him and he attacked the two guards. It was kind of in a stairwell of an asylum hotel or refugee hotel or whatever. And imagine someone in their 50s who's not fit in that situation. Like, that puts the guard's life at risk. It puts other people's lives at risk because they can't protect whoever they're meant to be protecting. You'd want to be like either a sadist or a masochist to be a guard right now. So what I mean by being a sadist is if you like pushing grannies around at protests or pepper spraying, children or terminally ill ladies at bus stops or old men or whatever. If you like doing any of that stuff, well then, maybe joining the guards is for you. But it's
now,
just, I don't know why anyone would want to do it.
Not all hope is lost for the guards. They have a plan. They have a plan to get new people joined. So here's their big idea.
An excellent member of An Garda Síochána, and I know there's some people down there would as well. So if you have any questions, the inspector is just going to talk to you about what you need, how long you have to live in Ireland, what qualifications you might need to join An Garda Síochána, but please don't rule it out. We need the Muslim community represented in An Garda Síochána. We need the travelling community. We need a lot of different communities. It can't be all Irish men and women. Does that make sense? We have printed out,
There you go. So that's the plan. There's another clip.
And to even talk to you and learn about your religion. Because in An Garda Síochána, it's very important for us to be part of the community and to understand our community and the people who live in our community. The people that come from all different backgrounds, all different religions. And I hope someday, and I hope it's going to be soon rather than later, that we will start to see members of the Muslim community joining An Garda Síochána, and that there'll be ladies from the community wearing the headscarves in a Garda uniform, and that there'll be gentlemen from the Muslim community who will be praying in Garda stations with their prayer masses on a Friday. But one bonus in having a youth line or police force is that you get to bring those over food banks like the food we're having today at the end of Ramadan. So thank you again for allowing us to be part of your community and your celebrations, and we look forward to, as the Archbishop said, We look forward to the day that your mosque is built and we can go and visit you in your house of prayer. And maybe we'll bring some of our food, like Irish stew or something like that. So again, thank you very much, Ashwan, and all the best.
All
Oh
the
my
best.
God. Where to start with that? Do you think all the Muslims would love our Irish stew, Suzanne?
I have so much to say about this. So I raised the issue of halal meat a couple of times there over the past week, because a lot of people don't know that most of the commercially bought meat in this country for restaurants and takeaways is halal. If people want to pop along to Musgraves, or I don't think anyone can just walk into Musgraves, but if you can get access to it, you can walk in and see that for yourself.
Some people might know what that is, by the way. Very briefly, you want to
Yeah,
explain?
so halal slaughter is different to the slaughter method that we use. So we stun animals, and it means that they're not aware. Killing is never nice, but it's the most humane way is to stun the animal, and they're not aware of really, what's happening, and the death is not. It's as painless as possible. So with halal, it often involves like essentially like tasering beforehand, so electrocution to incapacitate the animal, but to keep it aware and conscious, so it can't move, but it knows what's happening and it can feel pain. And then they slit the throat, and they pray over the animal first apparently, and then they slit the throat and the blood drains from the animal. So it's a long drawn out process of suffering. The reason they do this is because their blood is haram, so anything that's haram is forbidden. And Irish stew would be forbidden because unless it's halal, and who knows, maybe nowadays it is. But that was a real Father Ted-esque moment from that guard there. So with the halal thing, it's worth mentioning that these animals are prayed over with Islamic prayer. So if you're a Christian, this is breaking the first commandment to eat halal meat. So the fact that people are eating this meat without being aware is, and I am looking into it more. I'm looking into the regulations around this and whether people are supposed to be informed. And I will revert back when I get answers. But the ISPCA have been silent about it. All the vegan lefties are silent about it. Your children are getting fed, halal meat in school, poultry. So yeah, but as far as the mosque is concerned,
Here's another one.
Yeah, there's loads of this
Sligo.
going on. Yeah, and I had reports from locals in Sligo that the guards went recruiting in the mosque where Polanyi attended, and that was after the special branch had questioned people in that mosque for being aware of what you had planned and not reporting it. Now, to play devil's advocate, it's possible that they didn't report it because they didn't think he was serious, but I don't think, if anyone's even joked about something like that nowadays, I think, you need to take it seriously. And there they are recruiting in the mosque and recruiting in mosques all over the country. And what they say they're doing is they're recruiting as a diversity drive. But I have my own theory about this. I wrote an article about it the other day. I don't think it's a diversity drive. I think it's because they have deep concerns about a lot of these mosques and prayer houses. There was an article there the year before last in the British Telegraph, not in the Irish papers, of course, where they reported that Gardaí had concerns about over 100 mosques and prayer houses in the Leinster region alone, and that they were basically they were quoted as saying, "We're looking into a black hole here when it comes to these radicalized people, but we know it's happening." So there's a lot of radicalization going on, and they say, "Oh, it's not the normal just Muslim that's abiding by their religion and just attending to go to prayer," and that's fair enough, okay. But 100 is a lot. 100 in Leinster alone, that they're concerned about. So I believe they're going in here to get eyes on the ground. They want to have people in there who are going to de-radicalize or are going to keep an eye on what's going on. But the fact of the matter is, they're not checking these people. We don't know who these people are. We don't know what their background is. We don't know, like, these people, if you become a guard, you've got access to, every person in the country, basically, in terms of their information and stuff like that. It's just untenable and crazy that this situation will continue, that they don't do any background checks on these people.
Crazy.
It's
Absolutely.
it's insane. And what
Yeah.
about the misogyny aspect of it? In the first one clip you showed there, there's not a single woman in sight because they're not allowed in there, where the
Yes. Well, let me
her
show
house is.
this clip. Just that you brought that up, Suzanne. Let me
I
play
just
this
need
clip
to
here.
brighten my screen here, okay?
Yeah, I'm just going to play this while you're doing that.
You know, I've been wearing hijab for 15 years as an NYPD member of service, and I'm super proud of this department of where we came. We came from where there was barely any Muslim officers to where we have over 1,200 members of service and over 10 ladies wearing hijab as a member of service, you know, uniform member of service.
10 ladies out of 1,200. Wow, that's not a great return. That kind of,
That's 10 ladies out of 1,200 Muslims, so not
yes,
1,200 police in total.
yes.
So there's more police than that. So there's just 10 ladies wearing the hijab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when they go into the mosques and, you know, there's just men sitting there. I mean, you know, the guard's okay with this deep-rooted misogyny. And when they went into the other place there, when you saw the guard talking about the Irish stew, and they don't seem very keen. They're not interested. Like, this is the thing that people need to understand. Um, it's well known. Like, these Muslim communities, they keep to themselves because you're not meant really to fraternize with people who are not Muslims. And a lot of them, they don't look towards police for guidance. You saw that with the Southport attack on the young girls there a few months ago. The police had to turn to the elders of the Muslim communities in order to get the Muslims to kind of toe the line and not engage in the riots. So, you know, they have their own elders, they have their own religious people like imams and muftis and all of that who they turn to for their guidance and support. They don't see our guards or our police as someone they need to follow, and they certainly, I don't think, see the force as something they necessarily need to join. That doesn't mean that they won't, but like, none of the ladies there were listening. None of the ladies were
No,
interested. They're
no.
not even, most of them are not even seeking. Like, the ladies are, you know, there's so much misogyny that these ladies are, you know, a lot, it's kind of like 1950s Ireland, you know, they're stay at home, they don't go out to work, their
Mm-hmm.
husbands go out to work. You know, that's
Yeah,
just a fact. I'm not trying to be, people say I'm being hateful or whatever. No, I'm not. No. And it's not racist
That's
because, like,
awesome.
Muslims are not a race.
I just want to play a tiny bit more of this. 1 second.
And I'm looking forward for another 100,000 ladies wearing hijabs in the near future as an NYPD. I also want to say a message to the sisters.
Yeah, well, that's it really. 100,000 Muslim ladies with their gear on, and we were sent in this. I don't know. I know a lot of guards weren't happy with the uniform change recently. I don't know how the Muslim ladies are going to think about this when they join the force. I'm not sure if that has been approved or not yet. I actually think it's an improvement than the kind of the black gear, because the black gear can look a little bit intimidating and kind of look a little bit ninja-esque, whereas that's
Yeah.
lovely and bright, and I like that. I think that's nice.
Well, she's not gonna get run over, that's for sure. Like,
No.
obviously this is a joke, right? But just for a split second, when I saw this image, this is my first time seeing it. I questioned, you know, is this real? Because it wouldn't surprise me if it was, you know. And
I know.
the most surreal things you see now, you have to kind of double check. Is that a joke? Is that, you know, that's how crazy things have actually gotten.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
know.
Anything is possible these days. Let's go back to Minister Jim O'Callaghan, where he is talking about knife crime.
Obvious spate of knife crime, particularly in the capital city at the moment. Last year, there was an increase to the maximum penalty for possession of a knife in certain circumstances, up from 5 years to 7. That doesn't appear to have done anything at all. Was that just purely about optics, or has it had any meaningful impact?
I think it has had an impact. And if you look at the number of knives that have been seized in 2024, it didn't increase from 2023. It's around 2,200 knives that have been seized. I think it is very important that as policymakers, we make it publicly aware that carrying knives is just unacceptable. Unfortunately, there are a lot of young guys who think that it is appropriate to carry knives.
A lot of
Oh
young
gosh.
guys. Who are all these young guys carrying knives all of a sudden? Let me just throw up this article here as well, and you can give me your thoughts on that, Suzanne. There's something about knife crime that once it starts, it's an incredibly difficult pattern to break. What's behind the recent spate of stabbings? I just have a little bit here I printed out in front of me from that article by Dr. Bowden, describing knife carrying as both utilitarian and symbolic, implying it has become normalized in certain social contexts. Which social context exactly? This normalization may stem from a cultural shift where knives are seen as tools of status or survival, particularly among youths in urban areas like Dublin. Like, when did this happen? Well, like, this seems to be a new enough thing. Like, what cultural shift has occurred where knives all of a sudden are... We've seen it in the UK,
Yeah.
big problem in the UK with stabbings and knife-related incidents.
So when do Irish people carry knives to survive? Like maybe, a few hundred years ago or a few thousand years ago. When do we, what's this cultural shift? What's, deliberately
I
just, there's a lot of gaslighting going on here. The
Yeah,
number of knife crimes that have happened over the last few weeks that have been serious. For example, a woman in Cork, her house was broken into. She was stabbed by a Romanian man. She fled her home with her child in her arms. There was a girl in Galway whose father says it was a Middle Eastern man who attacked her very close to an asylum centre. I'm not saying that anyone from the asylum centre did it. I'm just saying it was just down the road from one. And she was attacked with a knife. And then you had the people in Stoneybatter attacked. There was a man by the name of Osama Sarhan, not very Irish name, who broke into a lady's apartment. He was sentenced this week. He got time off because he said he was having a difficult time when it happened. He broke into a lady's apartment, attacked her in her bed with a knife, but the knife wasn't that sharp, so they said. And he also attacked two ladies the same day in other incidents. So that's just, and then I mentioned the Ukrainian fella earlier on. So that's just like a handful of crimes. And then we had the priest in Renmore Barracks. That guy pleaded guilty there a couple of weeks ago. He was radicalized. He had an issue with peacekeepers in Mali. And of course, we were told he was an Irish national, which, but all of these knife crimes, and there's so many more I could reel off the top of my head, and not one of those people was Irish. The only people who are Irish that I can think of are the couple you mentioned that were involved in the stabbing of that asylum seeker. By the way, what's an asylum seeker do now at 3 or 4 in the morning at a nightclub when they get €38 a week? Well, what's that about?
good question.
But can we talk about Jim O'Callaghan for a minute? Dim Jim is what I'm going to start calling him, because, if you tell these youths or whoever, you're not allowed to carry a knife, it's just not allowed. So that means they're not going to carry knives, does it? And
Well,
why does it?
yes, if you also take in Gary Gannon's suggestion of having bins around the city where all these people who carry knives can dump them. That guy is a bloody genius.
Gary Gannon, if ever there was a conversation where not the sharpest tool was apt, it's this one where we're talking about knives, and Gary Gannon thinks, so there was someone from Social Democrats in Germany, can't think of her name now, but she also suggested this idea that Gary Gannon suggested. So maybe he got it from her. And it hasn't worked out too well for Germany. They have a knife incident just less than every 30 minutes. So, but Jim O'Callaghan, the things that comes out of this man's mouth, and knife crime is or what did he say? The number of people who have been found to have knives on them. So that's less. But that doesn't mean that less people are carrying knives. That just means there hasn't been enough police to search people, to deal with knife crime. So more people are getting away with carrying knives, because they're emboldened because they know, seeing a guard is I think I'd quicker see a unicorn around where I live than see a guard.
Now, I want to just bring this up here for a minute, Suzanne. This is a Twitter post from this fella called Cannon, who is, I believe, a Jamaican asylum seeker who's living in Ireland, and he's causing awful hassle online. Here's his latest: shank up all racists, with some emojis of knives there. And then he put up this tweet here about an elected councillor in Dublin, Gavin Pepper. Someone send me his address now. The migrant army is looking to have a word about his hatred for diversity. This guy is, if anything happens to Gavin Pepper, like, you know, this man needs to be held responsible. I don't know how he gets away. Like, if I, for example, was to put up a similar tweet about, let's say, Councillor Gerdeer here in town, do you not think I'd have a phone call or a visit from the Gardaí? Absolutely, I would. Yet this guy is stoking up racial hatred day in, day out, this Cannon fella.
Yeah, he threatened his children as well. He said, like, so this Cannon guy, you know, he has perhaps not been the best partner or the best father, and his kids are not in his possession, and he has sort of threatened that he will do the same to Gavin Pepper's kids that have been done to his, and he's going to basically take them away and all this kind of stuff. So as far as I know, the guards are not investigating this. And this guy's name, by the way, his full name's Andre Buchanan, and he's had a go at me before as well. He's not threatened me, but he's said stuff about me. And Debbie McCann, who is a journalist for the Irish Mail on Sunday, she wrote a hit piece on me a couple of weeks ago. And she also wrote a piece on Andre Buchanan before, where she painted this guy as so innocent of, you know, just this poor asylum seeker, and he was getting death threats, and he needed a police escort from his home and had to move to another home, and he was getting bomb threats on his car. And she never once mentioned that the reason for that was because he kept putting up posts where he was calling for extreme violence against Irish people. So, you know, yeah, he's never been investigated. And can we just give a shout out to Debbie McCann as well, who, by the way, called Maurice McCabe a child abuser, and was said in court, the judge reprimanded her a number of times during the Maurice McCabe tribunal for not telling the truth. So this lady, Debbie McCann, she talks a lot about women who get murdered in Ireland and domestic violence, but she wrote this awful hit piece on me and didn't say any of the reasons why I feel unsafe in my area, even though she asked me, and I gave her, you know, answers that were that had evidence attached to them. And here she is painting this guy as an innocent person. And look at the threats he's made against Gavin Pepper. I believe this Buchanan guy is a coward. However, you just don't know with someone like him. He could be a ticking time bomb. Yeah. And they've, you know, you or I said anything like this, and we would have to, you know, I mean, we've had the Twitter onto us to say that the guards had sent them a court order to basically spy on us, and they were saying we'd committed a crime just because we shared some video or whatever.
We'll get to that, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. But I want to just keep going with Jim. We'll talk about that at the end. But I want to get back to Jim here because we've Jim O'Callaghan.
He expanded in a bit when some of the administrative work is done, so that you will be responsible for the migration piece, which has been part of the Department of Children for a few years up until now. And you've talked about the need for there to be a forthright and honest discussion around how we manage all of this. And in particular, in recent interviews, you've talked about the attitude of somebody making an application for asylum. If they are rejected, the idea should be, well, you're gone. You haven't got licence to stay here. You should go. To be honest and forward with people, though, it's not that easy, though, is it? Because you can't remove somebody from the jurisdiction unless you've got somewhere else to put them, or you know somewhere else they can go. So what is the solution then if people have their claim rejected? Where do they go?
You're correct in terms of your appraisal of the system that operates at present, which is the International Protection Act 2015. And it does provide a whole series of opportunities for an applicant to appeal, whether it's rejection, whether it's deportation order, whether it's returns order, they can appeal. I'm going to change the law, and we're going to have a new law in. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll get in this year, but we're going to have a new law in that's going to expedite the whole process. The problem with the process is when people apply to the International Protection Office, they get a decision, they appeal it. It takes far too long. We need to make it much faster. Too many people are coming in claiming asylum when they're not entitled to asylum, and the real losers in that situation are the people who are coming in and are entitled to asylum.
No, the real losers are Irish people, Mr. Minister O'Callaghan. That they're the real losers in this whole thing. Just a few things there before I bring in Suzanne. Like he's saying, okay, the wait time is too long. Obviously, we all know that, and Jim is going to change the law, and he's going to fix all the problems. Well, first things first. I mean, I just simply don't believe him. He's not going to do that. He did say it might be this year, it might be next year. He'll keep talking about it. He won't do it. And even if he does do it, it's not going to help all our problems. I mean, I think we need to be looking at some sort of situation where when people are waiting for their asylum application to be processed, we need to look at maybe some sort of externalised migration like the UK are looking at. They're looking at having a third state like Rwanda, the UK are talking about, where people wait there until their claims are processed, and that's one way to do it. Why don't we have lovely little islands off the west coast of Ireland here? Could we not set up some centres there where people can wait until their claims are processed? And
I'm
we'll
sure the
take it from
people of the
there.
west of Ireland would be delighted with that suggestion, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I just say the west of Ireland because we have lovely, lovely weather over here, as we found out with a recent storm. But surely we can find a little island where it's
yeah.
not too inhabited, and there's a bit of space for some IPAS centres, or not even IPAS centres, just centres where people can wait until their claims are processed. But just one other thing, Suzanne, I want to just remind people of this, because obviously that would help, I'm sure, to reduce the wait time for these claims. But we can do something way before that. Listen to Michael McNamara when he was a TD. This is literally from a year ago to the day nearly, I think.
In 2023, 3,285 people presented at Dublin Airport without valid travel documents. In 2022, it was 4,968. Under Section 11 of the Immigration Act 2004, it is an offence to embark in Ireland without valid travel documents. Now, it would appear to me that that's a strict liability offence. It doesn't really matter what your intention is or what your reasons are. It's an offence. So, in other words, if the window flies off your Boeing 737 and your passport gets sucked out, it's still an offence. It may go towards the sentence you receive, but it's still an offence, punishable by up to 12 months in prison and arrestable without warrant. To date, nobody has been... one person, rather, has been prosecuted, I think, in 2022. So it seems that this is an offence that's not being prosecuted in Ireland for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. One person prosecuted, yet there's thousands, if not at this stage, tens of thousands of people landing at Dublin Airport, destroying their documents, committing a criminal offence, who should be either jailed or sent right back. You shouldn't leave the airport. So that would help, along with Jim's idea to change the law and reduce the wait times for claims to be processed. What do you reckon, Suzanne? What do you think of Jim? Is Jim going to save the day?
No, definitely not. He is talking out his backside, and 87% of people who come in here through airports and ferry ports destroy their passports just prior to arrival, which, as Michael McNamara has pointed out, is a crime. It's a crime to evade border patrols by destroying your documents. And, so much of, like, these people should be turned around when they get here and sent back. Okay, so they say, well, we don't know where to return people to. Well, you know where that person came in from. So if they came from Sweden, send them back to Sweden. If they came from the UK, send them back to the UK, because they shouldn't be here in the first place because they've already claimed asylum elsewhere. So even if they do destroy their documents, we know where they came from because they came in on a particular plane. So, just to point out as well, they're talking about they're going to put 700 or so men, I think it is, into the old revenue building in Mount Street, which is beside the passport office. I mean, the irony cannot be lost on people that 87% of these people who will be in this revenue building, if other statistics or anything to go by, are going to have come in here without any passports. But the passport office there, like if you wanted to go on holiday next week, and well, let's say you want to go on holidays this coming Sunday, and you realise that you don't have your passport and you let it expire or you lost it, that's not considered if you ring consular assistance or whatever, they're not going to just give you another passport if you snap your fingers because you're going to miss a few days of your holiday. They're going to tell you that you need to wait a few days, that you might be able to get an emergency passport, and you're going to have to pay through the nose for it. You know, you can't just like leave this country without a passport. You can't just come in here without a passport. Like, I can't get into this country without my passport. When I go on holidays and I come back in, I have to show my passport. So this, you know, and Jim talks about, oh, they lose out or whatever. Well, you're right, Irish people do lose out. But again, if you want to play devil's advocate and come down on the side of the asylum seekers, the people who are genuinely might be fleeing a war zone, or, you know, like look at the Democratic Republic of Congo at the moment. The media haven't reported on that at all, but there's terrible crimes going on there against Christians. So, you know, beheadings and rapes of children, summary executions of children, setting women on fire, you know, all of this kind of thing. And if someone, let's say, wanted to come from there, you know, that's someone who maybe genuinely needs asylum. Like, but all of these men who are coming in and all these people who are coming in who are economic migrants, which they are, because a secret memo from the Department of Justice that the Information Commissioner forced them to release stated that the vast majority of people coming in here are economic migrants. This is a fact. Also a fact that no one's background checked. Department of Justice admitted that to Michael McNamara and to Carol Nolan as part of a parliamentary FOI response.
Yeah, absolutely. We just keep going.
What is the success rate on appeal?
I haven't got the exact statistics in terms of on appeal, but I can't tell you.
It's ballpark around a quarter, though,
Can I just tell you this? In terms of the 14,000 applications that were processed last year, and 70% of them were refused. Of that 70%, a significant proportion are appealed.
As is their right.
Yeah, as is their right. And those appeals...
Will that right be amended by your new law?
Sorry, those appeals haven't been heard yet. There's always going to be a right to appeal.
How are you going to then remove unsuccessful applicants from the jurisdiction if you haven't got agreement from somewhere else to relocate?
Well, first of all, you can deport individuals, and the way to do that, and it's something my department's working on and I've instructed them, I want to be worked upon, is through charter flights. And we will be chartering flights to remove people who aren't entitled to be here and who've received a deportation.
Don't you need agreement from the receiving state to receive them, though?
Yeah, many of the receiving states will agree to that. That's another issue as well in terms of returns order under the Dublin 3 regulation, which is slightly more complicated. If somebody comes here and they already applied for international protection in another EU country, we're entitled to return them to that EU country, but if they accept them, and in many instances they do. But it needs to be a much more effective system. Also, we're going to use Frontex much more. Frontex is the European agency responsible for protecting borders. It charters flights and has flights to different parts of the world. We will be buying seats on Frontex.
They're going to be buying seats in Frontex and they're going to be deporting people. Let me just play this one back to back and we'll chat about the two of them.
Deportation order in every instance, or are there going to be some cases where somebody is told, no, sorry, we can't keep you, and we just expect them to do the honourable thing and absent themselves?
There's a system at present that works very efficiently in terms of voluntary returns. Sometimes people...
How do we know that's efficient? We have no stats on how often it's done.
I'm going to tell you because I have the stats in respect of it. In terms of 2024, there was approximately 950 voluntary returns. And what happens is people are told that if you don't leave, you've got to the end of the road in terms of the asylum application, the appeal hasn't succeeded, we'll help you to leave the country, and if you don't leave, there has to be the threat that ultimately you'll be deported.
But you're saying how many cases were processed last year? 14,000?
40, but...
And about 70% of those were unsuccessful. So about 10,000 people were rejected and fewer than 1,000 voluntarily absented themselves.
They're not the same cases. The best way to look at this is last year there were 2,400 deportation orders. And of those 2,400 deportation orders, I think the region of 1,116 have resulted in people leaving through either enforced deportation or the more common one, which is voluntary returns, having been encouraged by my department to go and be given assistance to leave the country.
Just on that last piece, I just did a little bit of research on that. So what I found out is in 2024, I think you may be correct in this, there was 2,403 people were told to leave. And that's as of December the 20th, 2024, so pretty much the end of the year. Confirmed departures, 958 had left. So 958 had left by November the 29th. That's 127 forced out by the Immigration Bureau. 831 through the voluntary programme. So this voluntary program is basically, if you lose your appeal and there's a deportation order, you can get onto the state and they will pay up to €1,200 to help facilitate you leave the state, or up to €2,000.
They'll probably leave and then coming straight back in again.
Yeah, probably. So by the year end, about 980 had left in total. That's 980 out of the 2,400, right? That leaves 1,400 thereabouts, that are unaccounted for. So, like,
and how many of them are criminals? How many of them got out of jail and were meant to leave and didn't leave? So, Judge Nolan said to that Tunisian man who slashed the woman's face that, he would knock a year off his sentence if he promises to leave for Germany to go and live with his brother when he gets out. So if he promises to leave.
He promised. Well, that's the other thing. So, like, if they take advantage of this this scheme or whatever, like, what's it called again? The voluntary returns program. Well, then we have an idea that they've left. We have some knowledge of them leaving. But otherwise, if they lose an appeal and there's a deportation order, we just don't know if they're gone. More than likely, they're not gone. And what happens if they're caught at some point in the future and the guards catch them and say, "Hey, there's a deportation order for you. You should be gone." What do? We just kick them out then at that point.
Yeah, everything is very loose and lax when people are coming in. Okay, so they don't need. What was it? Micheál Martin said about what is vetting anyway? Simon Harris said a similar thing about what is illegal immigration anyway? Do you remember he said that on one of the TV shows? So everything's loose and lax when they're coming in. So when a deportation order is made, why is it a self-deportation order? Why is that person not immediately picked up, held and detained until this country can provide a flight out of, and these people can be supervised on a flight home. It doesn't have to be a chartered flight. They can send a guard or two guards with the person to make sure that they leave the country. It's just ridiculous. It's just excuse after excuse. And that the Brazilian man who stabbed people in the neck, and he was meant to have left in 2022. But not only did he not leave, he then broke the law, and he was out on bail when he committed his crime. And there's one thing that we need to be discussing here is that when you look at the terror attacks that have taken place over the past few years around Europe, you'll find that a common feature is that these jihadists are failed asylum seekers who've been asked to leave, okay? And they didn't leave, and nobody made sure they left. And then they committed their crime because they had a grudge, right? Because they were supposed to leave and they didn't want to leave. So they thought, well, I'm going to get my own back here. So you're creating a situation where you've got these people floating around, and that brings us to this,
Garda planning full-scale anti-terrorism operation for St. Patrick's Day parades in Dublin and across Ireland. Well, do we do this every year? Have we always had anti-terrorism operations for St. Patrick's Day? Is that a new thing?
We never have. And to be honest, I don't even think we do this year. I think this headline is optics for the actual terrorists who might be watching what's going on here. And they want them to think, they've got all these operations in place, but it's just impossible. There's literally hundreds. I've looked this up. There's hundreds of, some are small, some are big, festivals around the country on St. Patrick's Day. It's just not possible with our police force to provide the kind of protections that you would need. And even if it was possible, preventing this kind of thing, how feasible is that? In small towns, are they going to have loads of guards around, and they're going to, our guards don't even carry guns, and I'm not necessarily advocating for that, especially given that they're taking on people who don't even have background checks, and we don't know who these people are. But, what are the capabilities of the guards to stop an attack like this unless they're armed guards? And how many armed guards do we actually have in the country?
Yeah. I don't know what.
This is the way we live now. There's no going back now. This is the way we live.
And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And we will be the last country in Europe that might decide to take a stand, but we're well off that now. We had a chance in the last election. We messed that one up. So it is going to keep getting worse and worse because these people running the show do not have your best interest at heart. And going back to this St. Patrick's Day, like what parent in their right mind would bring their kids along to St. Patrick's Day with this potential?
But a lot of people aren't going to know, you know, this is the
Mm,
thing. Not everybody knows that there's a terror
yeah,
threat because it hasn't really been shouted from the rooftops.
yeah,
And there's lots of tourists that come here for St. Patrick's Day.
yeah.
So a lot of people don't know. And then the other side of it is, you know, there is a part of me that wonders, you know, do they just want to stop these Christian festivals? They want to kind of prevent us from celebrating our Irish culture as well. But like, you just can't take the chance. So even if that is part of the motive here, and you know, on behalf of the government or whatever, you just can't take that chance because I can tell you here and now, there's not a single chance that I'm going to be bringing my child to a Patrick's Day parade. Not a chance.
Mm-hmm. You're dead right. We'll just finish up by mentioning that's pretty much the extent of Jim O'Callaghan's interview on tonight's show. So let's see what happens. Just before we finish up, Suzanne, this thing that happened last week where gripped her all over the media, but there were 9 other accounts that the Gardaí went to the courts, went to a district court to obtain a court order to essentially spy on 10 accounts. Our account, the Irish Inquiry, being one of those. And even though a court order was granted, and this is a court direction, and it was brought to the head offices in Twitter or X, and they said no, we're not going to get involved, or we're not going to pass over that information that you're looking for. So fair play to them. Now, we don't know, by the way, we would imagine, I would imagine, we both would, that the guards would have went to the court and got a similar court order for the likes of Meta, that operate Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp. And then there's Telegram as well, and there's TikTok. We haven't heard anything from those and TikTok, yeah. We haven't heard anything from those platforms. We only know about this because X sent us an email telling us what happened. But just want to bring that up on screen. Give us your thoughts on what's going on here with the guards trying to obtain these orders to spy on us.
Well, I mean, it could be done just to kind of have a chilling effect on everybody discussing these things. If they kind of make it seem like they're going to, you know, come after people for, as they say, breaking the law, that we could have, we could be facing up to 14 years in prison for, I think they're using legislation that was originally designed to deal with domestic terrorism. So it could be that they just want to have like a chilling effect on everybody else posting things and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if we're to presume that they genuinely did want to go after us, well, then that's quite disturbing and unsettling. You know, this is the way things are going. They are going to try and look at the UK there, and I think it was Apple this week who has kind of reneged on saying that it will never hand over the data of its users. And you know, you can go to jail there in the UK for basically posting a meme or whatever. So I see Elon Musk posted a video today of a German man who said that he is being prosecuted for being part of a group 8 years ago where supposedly racist memes were posted within this group, and he didn't even share the memes, and they're prosecuting him.
Yeah.
So this is happening. It's a pattern, you know.
One other
all of
issue
these
that I
things
want
are
to bring to
happening
you
in every country at the same time. In Germany, in the UK, here, same with the digital IDs. It has to be part of an overall agenda because it just doesn't make sense otherwise. But things are becoming very totalitarian here.
Yeah, the Minister for Justice was actually asked about this at the end of that interview. I forgot. I'll just play this very brief clip here.
One other issue that I want to bring to you, and it is about your field in the Department of Justice. The website Gript today published a Garda order that had been secured through the courts last year, where the guards were effectively looking for permission to access their Twitter or X DMs to try and identify sources about their coverage of protests in Newtown Mount Kennedy last year. The only reason why the sources were not revealed is because X, the website itself, refused to comply with that order. Is it the policy of An Garda Síochána to try and find out Garda sources through court means?
Well, sorry, I hadn't got any notification about this. I would have appreciated if you told me in advance. I would have tried to follow it up. I know very little about it. Was an application made to the High Court by the Garda Síochána?
To the district courts.
To the district court. Well, if it's an application
to
the district court, there is the system there of judicial oversight. There's obviously a provision in the legislation that permits the Gardaí to make that application. If the courts don't think it is appropriate, it won't be granted. But the good thing from what you say is that there's a court process and a district court judge will be appraising the application, and I can guarantee you there'll be judicial oversight of that.
I can guarantee you there won't. And it's interesting there when he says like, and was there an application made to the High Court? Presuming in his head that that's what should have happened. It should have been at least an application made to the High Court, you would imagine. But no, an application made to the district court. The lowest court in the land. I will tell you. I was chatting with an ex-member from Garda Síochána there a couple of nights ago. He rang me about this issue, and he told me in his 30 years as a guard, he would have to go into the district court numerous occasions to get a search warrant for someone's house or whatever. And he would basically, it would be very basic what he present to the judge. They'd say, "Oh, we just need this order. We have some information about this," and very, very vague, no details. And he said, in his whole career, in his whole 30-year career, never once did the judge question him to any degree as to what he was looking for and why he was looking for it and what proof they had. They just the judge just throw it out like that. And once the judge makes that order, well, that's a court direction at that point, and the guard is golden at that point. He's untouchable. He can do what he wants. The other interesting thing that ex-Garda told me was that, and we must see if he'd be interested in coming on a show one night and talking about this in more detail. But he just said it's very interesting, like any occasions that the guards go to a house with a search warrant, which is essentially what this was as well. If someone at the door says, "No thanks, guard, no, I don't want you coming in here," the guards aren't going to turn and walk away. The guards are going to break the door down, go in and look for what they're looking for. But yet in this case, Twitter said, "No, guard, no, sorry, you're not coming in here. We know you have your court order and stuff and court, whatever. You're not coming in." And the guards just walked away. Now, this guard also told me, by the way, that he goes, generally, like the Garda Commissioner would not be involved in day-to-day investigations, but he said when X refused to comply with this court order, he said you can be damn sure that the investigating guards went back and had a meeting with the Garda Commissioner, and as well as that, the Minister for Justice was involved in that discussion, and they made the call, let's just leave it, let's just walk away from this for the moment. Like in my mind, it was probably just a fishing expedition that they thought they could get away with without anybody knowing, and let's get into these people's these influential X accounts, into their private DMs and see what they know, if they know anything at all.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of like the phone tapping scandal, because now it's people communicate through messages, but it's absolutely outrageous. But I do believe you're right; they were chancing their arm. So I don't find it too kind of concerning at the moment. I'm not worried about it, but I do think, though, as time goes on in this country, things are going to get worse in that regard. You're not going to be able to say anything.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'll say it anyway, and so will you. But like a lot of people won't because they'll be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hate crimes bill has come in. We haven't had this hate speech element yet, but just on the basis of that, you can imagine anybody saying they've got hurty feelings because Stephen Kerr or Suzanne Delaney said something or might have some information. The guards will go to the courts, get their court order, come and smash your door down, take all your electronic equipment, all your devices, all your phones, laptops, computers, for everybody living in the house, everybody. As well
if you don't give your passwords, that's an offence in and of itself.
So that's the way we're going. I mean, JD Vance highlighted this. I think this was just last year. Like Ireland's proposed hate speech law described as authoritarian by Trump's vice president.
He basically said that if this was any other country who had tried to initiate these hate speech laws, that there would be international sanctions put on that country. But that didn't happen in the case of Ireland. That was never going to happen, that there was going to be sanctions. So, and they're also spying on us as well as it is, because Helen McEntee went to a European court there last year to enact the data retention some kind of data retention bill where they can essentially spy on Irish citizens. Wouldn't be for the first time, because they did it during COVID with Kinson as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we should wrap it up. We've had a good old chat there. We haven't had one in a while, but hopefully we will do one again in the not too distant future.
Apologies again for the crap camera setup on my end.
Yes, don't worry, we'll get there. And that's about it. Just thanks to everybody for watching. Fair play. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed the show. So thanks very much, everyone, and take care.